After 12 years of on and off deployments and assignments, I'm not allowed to summarize in a Facebook post. I thought coming home would be simple. Not easy, but simple. Hug my kid, sleep in my own bed, eat food that didn't come in a foil pouch, maybe stand in my kitchen at 2 a.m. just because I could. My name is Adriana Reed. I'm active duty U.S. Navy. I've built a good career, the kind that looks calm on paper and feels like a treadmill set to survive. I've missed birthdays, school events, and more weekends than I can count. Not because I wanted to, because the job doesn't care what day it is when you're needed. The one thing I never stopped doing was taking care of my daughter Madison. Madison is 17 now, smart, stubborn, funny, in that dry way teens do when they're unimpressed by everything. I bought the house for her as much as for me. A real home base. A place that didn't move every time the Navy moved me. The mansion sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. A $6.8 million place on the water. I didn't win the lottery. I saved, invested, and lived like a minimalist while everyone around me bought new trucks and flashy toys. I wanted stability. A roof nobody could threaten. A neighborhood with good schools and neighbors who called the cops if they saw something off. The American dream with a security system and an HOA that sends you angry letters about trash cans. And yes, I trusted my sister. Candace is older than me by 4 years. Pretty polished, always knew how to work a room. The kind of person who could turn small talk into a business deal and make you feel like you were lucky she noticed you. Growing up, she was the responsible one. Or at least she looked like it. When my deployments stacked up, when Madison needed consistency, I signed a temporary caregiver authorization so Candace could handle school forms, doctor appointments, the boring stuff that becomes a disaster when you're 6 time zones away and your phone can't be on. It was supposed to be a bridge, not a transfer of power. I texted Madison whenever I could. I sent money every month. I sent care packages. I kept receipts because the Navy teaches you to document everything. Candace's would send updates. Madison's fine. Madison's busy. Madison's at a friend's. Madison's asleep. Madison's being a teenager. That last one was my favorite. It sounded normal. It sounded safe. I didn't announce my arrival. I wanted to surprise Madison. I pictured her opening the door, rolling her eyes like, "You're really here," and then hugging me like she used to when she forgot she was trying to act grown. I pulled into the driveway late afternoon. Coastal light palm trees, ocean air. The gate was open. That was the first thing that didn't fit. Our gate is never open. Not with a teenager in the house. Not in a neighborhood where half the residents have cameras pointed at their own mailboxes like they're, say, guarding nuclear codes. There was music. Not background music. Party music. Bass. Laughter. A lot of voices. I parked down the block, partly because I didn't want my rental to scream someone's home, and partly because the driveway was full. A couple of SUVs. A luxury sedan. A white van that looked like catering or event staff. People were coming and going, like this was a venue. I walked up the side path instead of the front, out of habit. The Navy does that to you. You don't walk into the obvious entrance when something feels wrong. You find angles. You listen before you show yourself. The backyard was lit up like a magazine shoot. String lights, bar setup. A table with charcuterie and shiny bottles. Guests in swimsuits and linen shirts. The kind of crowd that says casual while wearing a watch worth my first car. And in the middle of it, like she owned the view and the water, and the entire concept of the property, was my sister. Candace stood near the pool with a drink in her hand, laughing too loud, touching someone's arm like she was sealing a deal. She had that smooth host energy, the "I'm so glad you're here" smile. She was not acting like a guest. She was acting like a woman who believed the house belonged to her. I didn't move at first. I scanned. I counted faces. I looked for Madison. I found her near the outdoor kitchen. She wasn't hanging out. She wasn't chatting. She was working. Madison was carrying a tray of drinks. Not a cute helping out tray. A heavy tray. Her shoulders were tight, jaw set, eyes down. She moved quickly from person to person, refilling cups, grabbing empty bottles, wiping up spills before anyone could complain. A man snapped his fingers at her like she was a waitress. "Hey, sweetheart, more ice." Madison nodded and hurried off. No sarcasm, no eye roll, no teenage attitude. Just compliance. I felt my stomach drop in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with rage. The controlled kind. The kind that makes your vision go sharp and your thoughts go quiet. Then Candace clapped her hands and called out, "Okay, who wants another round?" People cheered. And Madison came back with a fresh bucket of ice, both hands gripping it like it weighed 50 pounds. She set it down, and Candace didn't even look at her. Didn't thank her. Didn't acknowledge her as a human being. Madison might as well have been a moving piece of furniture. I stepped forward before I could talk myself out of it. Madison saw me first. Her eyes widened. Not happy-wide, alarm-wide. Like I'd walked into the wrong house at the wrong time, and she was trying to warn me without saying a word. I said her name quietly. Mads. She froze for half a second, then forced her face into something neutral, and walked toward me like she was approaching a stranger. When she got close, she didn't hug me. She didn't say, "Mom." She didn't even say, "What are you doing here?" She leaned in like she was passing me a secret and whispered, "Please don't. Don't say anything." I stared at her. Madison. She cut me off, barely moving her lips. "Don't tell her you're my mom." My brain tried to process that sentence and failed. Who I asked, even though I already knew. She flicked her eyes toward Candace. "She'll make it worse. She said if I start trouble, she'll call and say you abandoned me." She said foster care. My hands clenched at my sides. Every part of me wanted to take Madison by the hand and walk straight out the gate. Right then, right in front of everyone. But Madison's fingers tightened around my wrist. Not a hug, a grip, a warning. Then Candace turned, spotted me, and her smile widened like she'd just seen a camera. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Adriana. Wow, it's been... what, forever?" She walked toward us with that same smooth confidence. A woman greeting a distant relative at someone else's party. Not a sister greeting the person who paid for the house she was standing in. Madison took a step back immediately, like she was trained to give Candace space. Candace looked Madison up and down and said, sweet as syrup, "Ice run again. Go ahead, honey." Madison nodded and moved, fast. Candace's eyes stayed on Madison until she disappeared, then snapped back to me. The smile was still there, but it had a new edge. Like she was smiling with her teeth, not her heart. "You didn't call," she said. "I wanted to surprise my daughter," I said. Candace laughed like that was adorable. "Oh, she's full of surprises these days." I looked past Candace toward the house. Toward the doors, the locks, the people walking around like this was theirs. "What is this?" Candace lifted her drink. "It's a get-together, you know, friends, neighbors, and Madison is working it." Candace tilted her head. "She's helping. It builds character." I didn't answer because if I opened my mouth with what I wanted to say, the whole neighborhood would learn new vocabulary. Candace leaned closer, still smiling. "Don't do anything dramatic, Adriana. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Let's talk like adults." I held her gaze and I realized something that hit even harder than the party. Candace wasn't surprised I came home. She was prepared for it. Candace glanced over her shoulder toward the patio door, and for half a second, I saw what she was really doing. She was tracking where Madison was. She was tracking who was listening. She was controlling the whole scene. Then she turned back to me and said quietly, "We need to go inside, now." And the way she said it made it clear this wasn't a request. I followed Candace toward the patio door with my teeth clenched so tight my jaw actually hurt. Inside the house felt colder than it should have. Not temperature-wise, energy-wise. Like someone had taken a home and turned it into a showroom. The living room looked staged, spotless, and oddly empty of anything that said teenager lives here. No backpack, no shoes kicked off by the stairs, no hoodie draped over a chair. Candace kept walking like she owned the place, leading me past the kitchen, past the hallway, straight into my office. My office. The room I'd set up so I could do paperwork between trips, pay bills, check Madison's school portal, handle life. The desk was different. The chair was different. The framed photo I used to keep of Madison at 12, gap-toothed grin hair and a messy ponytail was gone. Candace closed the door and leaned back against it like she was blocking an exit. "Before you start," she said, "you should take a breath." "I'm breathing," I said. Candace sipped her drink. "You have no idea how hard it's been." I laughed once. It wasn't even on purpose. It just came out. Hard. "That's the word you're going with." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't do that. Don't come in here acting like some hero." "I'm not acting like anything." I walked in and saw my daughter carrying trays like she's staff at a country club. "She's helping," Candace said like she'd practiced it. "She needs structure. She needs her mom." Candace lifted a hand. "Okay, let's talk facts. You've been gone for 12 years. "I've been serving," I said. "And I've been here," she shot back. "Do you know what people say when you're not around? Do you know what Madison's school asks when they can't reach you? Do you know what happens when a kid needs a guardian and the parent is absent?" "Absent," I repeated slow. "That's cute." Candace's smile showed up again, thin and sharp. "Call it what you want. I call it reality." I stepped closer. Where is Madison sleeping? Candace blinked. What? Where I said again is my daughter sleeping. Candace rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. Upstairs. She has a room. Then why does this house look like she doesn't exist? Candace shrugged. She's 17. They don't decorate like little kids. That answer was too smooth, too fast. I turned for the door and Candace's hand snapped out, grabbing my arm. Don't go stomping around, she hissed. Not tonight. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve. Take your hand off me. She did, but her face stayed close. If you scare Madison, she'll shut down. And if you embarrass me in front of my friends, you'll regret it. Regret it, I said. In my own house. Candace's eyes flicked toward the hallway. It's complicated. Then explain, I said. Candace pushed off the door and walked to the desk. She opened a drawer like she'd done it 1,000 times and pulled out a folder. She slid it across to me. This is why I'm not panicking right now, she said. This is why you should calm down. I opened it. Right on top was the temporary caregiver authorization I'd signed years ago. My signature, my initials, my date. The paper looked used. Bent corners, highlighted lines, sticky notes. Candace tapped the page. You gave me legal authority to care for Madison. Temporarily, I said. For school and medical. Candace lifted her brows. And I used it, because someone had to. I flipped the page. There were copies, emails, printouts. A school form with Candace's name listed as primary contact. A dentist appointment note. A pharmacy pickup receipt. It was like she'd built a case file. You keep a scrapbook of this, I asked. It's called being prepared, she said. Which you wouldn't understand, because you just show up and expect everything to pause for your big dramatic return. I stared at the papers, then at her. This doesn't make you her mother. Candace's smile dropped. No, but it makes me the person the system sees. Do you know what happens if I call the cops right now and say you're trying to take Madison without permission? Do you know how messy that gets? My skin went hot, not because I was scared of the cops, because I could already hear it. Custody dispute. Civil matter. Go to court. Meanwhile, Madison stays right here under Candace's control while I fight through paperwork with my uniform in a duffel bag. Candace saw the shift in my face and leaned in pleased. Exactly. Where's Madison's phone, I asked. Candace blinked again, slower this time. Why? Because she didn't text me when I landed, I said. Because she whispered like she was passing contraband. Because she flinched when you looked at her. Candace crossed her arms. Teenagers are dramatic. Answer the question. Candace's mouth tightened. I monitor her phone. For safety. That's not what I asked. Where is it? Candace's eyes slid away for half a second. In a drawer. Which drawer? She didn't answer. I nodded once. Okay. I pushed past her and walked out of the office. Candace's followed fast. Adriana, stop. You're making a scene. I'm looking for my child, I said. I moved through the house like I was clearing rooms. Not because I wanted a fight. Because my body knows how to move when something's wrong. The kitchen counters were spotless. Candace's brand of spotless. Decorative bowl of lemons. Expensive espresso machine. A calendar on the fridge that was all Candace's handwriting. Pilates. Brunch. HOA meeting. Not one thing for Madison. I opened drawers. Utensils. Candace's supplements. A stack of takeout menus. Nothing. I walked to the mudroom. Found a hook labeled Candace and another labeled Trevor. No Madison. My throat tightened. I climbed the stairs. Candace called from behind me, voice sharp now. Do not go into her room without asking. Watch me, I said. At the top of the stairs, the hallway was too clean. No posters, no shoes. No smell of hair products or teenage perfume. I reached the door at the end. I knew that room. That was supposed to be Madison's. I'd painted it a soft gray, told her she could pick whatever she wanted for furniture. I opened it. It wasn't her room. It was a guest room. Neutral bedding, matching lammies, a staged throw blanket, like someone designed it for listing photos. No personality, no Madison. I turned slowly, looking down the hall. Candace stood at the stairs, arms crossed. She doesn't stay up here. Where I said, and I heard how low my voice went, does she stay? Candace lifted her chin. She has a space. A space, I repeated. Is she a dog? Is she in a crate? Candace's face hardened. Don't be ridiculous. I walked past her and opened the next door. Linen closet, bathroom. Another guest room. Then I heard it. A sound from downstairs, faint through the music and chatter outside. The clink of glass. A quick, controlled footstep. Someone moving fast and careful. Madison! I spun and started down the stairs. Candace grabbed the banister like she was about to block me, then stopped herself when she saw my face. She knew that look. She'd seen it when we were kids, and I'd had enough. I got to the kitchen doorway and spotted Madison near the pantry, wiping her hands on a dish towel like she'd been caught doing something wrong. The moment she saw me, her shoulders rose up around her ears. "Madison," I said quietly. She looked toward the backyard, toward the noise, toward Candace's voice, like she was tracking danger. I stepped closer, slow. "Where do you sleep?" Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Downstairs." "Where downstairs?" She hesitated. Candace's voice snapped from behind me. "Madison, go back outside." Madison flinched. I turned my head just enough to look at Candace without taking my eyes off my daughter. "Don't." Candace smirked. "Don't what?" "Don't talk to her like she's property." Candace walked closer, smile back on performative again. "Sweetheart, guests are waiting. Go." Madison didn't move. That was new. A tiny thing, but new. Madison's fingers twisted the towel. She whispered barely audible laundry room. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly where that was. Off the side hallway. A small room with a sink cabinets and a door that used to lead to storage. Candace tilted her head. "What did you just say?" Madison's eyes widened, panic rising. She looked at me like she'd just crossed a line she wasn't allowed to cross. I took one step forward, putting myself between Madison and Candace, and for the first time all night, Candace's smile didn't come back. She looked past me toward Madison and said very softly, "You're going to regret that." Madison's breath caught, and I felt something in me go perfectly dangerously still as I started walking toward the laundry room door. My hand was already on the laundry room knob when I felt Candace step up behind me, like she was about to grab my shoulder again. I didn't give her the chance. I opened the door and looked inside. It was a laundry room technically, washer-dryer shelves, detergent lined up like soldiers. But the corner where I used to store beach chairs had been carved out into a space. A narrow twin bed, a cheap lamp, a small plastic drawer unit that looked like it came from a college dorm. No window. No door that closed fully, just a curtain rod with a faded sheet hanging like it was supposed to count as privacy. Madison stood behind me, half hidden, like she expected to be punished for even letting me see it. Candace made a noise like she was offended. "Oh my God! Don't start! It's temporary!" "This is where she sleeps," I said, not a question. Candace crossed her arms. She wanted her own area. Madison's eyes flashed for a second. Anger maybe, or embarrassment, then disappeared. Candace's version of reality had been pressed into her for too long. I turned to Madison. "How long?" Madison swallowed. "Since last year." Candace laughed, sharp and fake. "She's exaggerating." Madison's fingers tightened around the dish towel. "Since you moved in." There it was. A clean sentence, a straight one. Candace's face tightened. "You are not going to do this right now." I stared at Candace. "Moved in." Candace lifted her chin. "Someone had to run this place." "You're living here," I said. Candace spread her hands like I was being unreasonable. "Yes." "Because you weren't." I wanted to say 100 things. I wanted to go out back, shut off the music, and announce to the whole party that my sister was running a scam and my daughter was sleeping next to a dryer. But Madison was standing there shaking, and Candace had too much confidence for someone who was just helping. That kind of confidence comes from leverage. So I made a choice, not the satisfying one, the smart one. I stepped into the laundry room, pulled the curtain aside, and crouched near the bed. "Pack a bag," I told Madison quietly. "Just essentials. Clothes, meds, anything you need." Candace's voice snapped. "No." I stood up, slow, calm. "Yes." Candace moved closer. "You can't just take her." I looked at her like she was a stranger. "She's my daughter." "You signed paperwork," Candace said, almost singing it. "You left her with me. You can't waltz in and—" "I can do whatever I want," I said, "as long as I do it right." Candace blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not giving you a scene," I said. "I'm giving you a process." Candace scoffed. "Oh, please." I glanced at Madison. "Bag? Now?" Madison hesitated, then moved. Fast. Like she was afraid Candace would change her mind in the next 3 seconds. Candace stepped into my path. "Adriana, don't be stupid." "Move," I said. Candace didn't move. She lowered her voice. "If you take her right now, I call the police. I show them the authorization. I tell them you abandoned her for 12 years and you're unstable. They won't take her from me tonight. They'll tell you to go to court." That was exactly what I'd been thinking in the office. Candace saw my pause and smiled like she'd won. Madison froze mid-step, bag half-open eyes, darting between us. I nodded once like I accepted Candace's point. Then I said, "You're right." Candace's smile got bigger. "Finally." I turned to Madison. "Stop packing." Madison's face fell. Candace's shoulders relaxed just a little. And that was when I knew, absolutely knew, this wasn't about Madison's structure. This was about control. Candace wanted Madison to stay because Madison was a bargaining chip. A shield. A witness. I walked out of the laundry room without another word. Candace followed, satisfied already, rehearsing whatever speech she'd give to guests about how family is complicated. I went straight to the front hall closet, where I knew the router and security panel were. The house had a smart system I installed myself. I'd set it up so I could check cameras when I was overseas, just to make sure Madison got home safe from school. The panel was different. New brand, new keypad, and the camera feed screen was dark. Candace leaned against the wall, looking for something. I kept my face neutral. Just checking something. Candace laughed. You don't have access anymore. I looked at her. How? Candace shrugged. You're not here. You don't need it. That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Not because she was right, because she'd said it like she had the authority to decide. A man's voice called from outside, Candace. Come take a photo with us. Candace's face switched back to party host mode in half a second. Coming. She leaned close to me as she walked past. Be smart tonight. Don't embarrass yourself. Then she was gone out the back door, laughter sliding back into her voice like nothing happened. Madison stood at the end of the hallway, clutching her half-packed bag, eyes wide. I walked to her and lowered my voice. Do you have your phone? Madison shook her head. She took it. When? Months ago, Madison whispered. She said I was getting attitude. She changed my passwords. I can't get into anything. My throat tightened. School email. Madison shook her head again. She checks it. She gets the notifications. And if you try to talk to someone, Madison swallowed. She said she'd call CPS and tell them you left me, and I'm not safe with you. There it was again. That foster care threat. Not a random scare line. A strategy. I leaned closer. Listen to me. You did nothing wrong. You hear me. Madison nodded, but her eyes didn't believe it yet. I pulled my wallet out and slid a business card into her hand. It wasn't mine. It was blank on purpose. On the back, I wrote a number with a pen from the entry table. This is a phone I control, I whispered. If you get a chance, text it. Just a dot. Anything. Madison's fingers closed around it like it was oxygen. Candace's laugh rang out from outside louder now. The party was still rolling. People were still drinking. Nobody had any clue a kid was sleeping in a laundry room. I looked at the living room again. At the staged furniture. At the missing photos. At the security system I no longer controlled. Then I noticed something else that didn't belong. On the console table by the front door, there was a stack of mail. Most of it was junk. But one envelope had my address, and a logo I recognized. A real estate office. I picked it up. Candace had been sloppy. Or maybe she'd gotten cocky. Inside was a printed packet. Glossy pages. Photos of my house from angles that made it look even more expensive than it already was. A property overview. A list of recent comps. A suggested asking price. And at the bottom a line that made my blood go cold. Pre-listing appointment scheduled 9:30 a.m. Tomorrow. My thumb traced the date like I could rub it off the page. Madison's voice was small behind me. She told me not to touch that. I didn't look away from the packet. Did she say why? Madison hesitated. She said, we might be moving. She said it's none of my business. Moving. As in selling my house out from under me. I tucked the packet under my arm and walked toward the kitchen window, keeping my posture loose like I was just wandering. Candace was outside posing for photos, hand on a guest's shoulder, smiling big. I watched her for 3 seconds and saw what I hadn't wanted to admit. Candace wasn't just living here. Candace was taking over. And she was doing it with paperwork fear and the kind of confidence you only get when you think the other person can't prove anything. I went back to Madison and said, steady and low, I'm leaving for a little bit. Madison's eyes widened, panic flaring. No, I'm not leaving you, I said firm. I'm leaving to get help the right way. Madison clutched the card. I know I said. That's why I'm moving smart. I walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped out into the night air, like I was just going to my car. Candace's voice floated over the music behind me. Everything okay, Adriana? I turned just enough to meet her eyes across the yard. Totally, I said, and I smiled back the same way I used to smile right before a drill instructor decided to ruin someone's day. Then I got in my rental, locked the doors, and sat with that packet on my lap, staring at the words, pre-listing appointment, until they stopped being words and became a countdown. My fingers hovered over my phone for half a second. Then I started making calls. I didn't start the car right away because my hands were shaking, and I don't like driving when I'm one bad thought away from doing something stupid. Instead, I sat there in the dark with the real estate packet on my lap, listening to the bass from my own backyard like it was coming from someone else's life. In the Navy, when something goes sideways, you don't panic. You gather facts. You figure out who has what authority. You make the next move with your head, not your fists. So that's what I did. I pulled out my phone and opened a notes app. I made a list like I was building a mission brief. Madison is sleeping in the laundry room. Candace controls her phone and accounts. Candace has paperwork I signed years ago. Candace changed my security system. Candace is meeting a realtor tomorrow morning. Candace thinks I can't do anything tonight. Then I wrote the only line that mattered. I need Madison safe first. I called the first person who could help with that, a lawyer. Not some billboard lawyer with a slogan. The kind of lawyer who knows how to get a judge on the phone when a kid's safety is on the line. Monique Barrett picked up on the second ring. Barrett, she said, calm clipped. Monique! It's Adriana Reed, I said. We met at the Fleet and Family thing 2 years ago. You gave a talk on protective orders. There was a beat. Navy Reed. Still Navy. Tell me what's happening, she said, and her voice shifted into that tone people have when they stop being polite and start being useful. I kept it tight. No speeches, no emotion dump. My sister is living in my house. She's throwing a party right now. My daughter is 17, sleeping in the laundry room, and terrified to talk. My sister is threatening foster care. And there's a pre-listing appointment tomorrow morning to sell my house. Monique didn't gasp. She didn't say, oh my God. She said, do you have proof? Real estate packet with a scheduled appointment. I can take photos, I said. My daughter can't safely text from her own phone, but she can reach me if she gets access. Do you have a custody order in place? Monique asked. No, I said. I have a temporary caregiver authorization. I signed it years ago, so my sister could handle school and medical stuff when I deployed. Monique exhaled once. Okay, that's not custody, but it gives your sister cover. We're going to treat this like coercive control and unlawful restraint. If your daughter is scared to speak, that matters. My throat tightened. Can you move fast? I can, she said. But I need you to stay smart. Do not grab your daughter and run out the door without a plan. Your sister will call the police and weaponize that paper. I know, I said. That's why I called you before I did something that would end with me in handcuffs on my own driveway. Good, Monique said. Now listen, I'm going to draft an emergency motion tonight. We'll request temporary custody and a protective order, plus an emergency injunction to stop any sale or transfer of your property. Tonight, I asked. Tonight, she said. But I need more than your word. I need witnesses or documentation, something that shows immediate risk. I looked down at the packet. I have this. Take clear photos, she said. Email them to me. And I want you to call Adult Protective Services No. In this case, it's a minor, so we'll loop in the right child welfare channel if necessary. But the fastest tool is the court. Judges don't love drama, but they do love evidence. I almost laughed. So do I. Also, she added, you need someone to observe. If this goes to court, you want a third party. You have anyone you trust. I did. I called Derek Coleman next. Derek and I go way back. He was a master-at-arms when we worked the same base years ago. After he got out, he became the kind of private investigator people hire when they want answers, not vibes. He picked up like he had been waiting for me to call. Reed, he said. You're back stateside. Yeah, I said, and I walked into a mess. You sound like you're trying not to commit a felony, he said. That's not funny. It's a little funny, he said, and then his voice hardened. Tell me. I gave him the short version. Derek didn't waste time. Where are you right now? In a rental down the block, I said. Good, he said. Stay off that property unless you have to. I'll meet you in 15 minutes. We're going to document everything we can from public space. Neighbors' vehicles, who's coming and going. My daughter is inside, I said. I know, he said. That's why we're going to do this right. 15 minutes later, Derek slid into the passenger seat like we were about to stake out a drug house. Baseball cap, plain hoodie, no obvious gear. He looked like every guy who ever waited in line at Home Depot, which is exactly what you want. He glanced at the mansion and whistled low. 6.8 million, huh? Your sister has taste. My sister has a problem, I said. Derek studied the yard. Party, lots of witnesses. That cuts both ways. She can't pretend you were never there. He pulled out a small camera and snapped a few shots. Mailboxes gate open. Different cars. Great. We'll build a timeline. What about Madison? I asked. We'll get her out, he said. But first we make sure your sister can't flip the narrative. Derek watched the back gate for a minute, then pointed. There. See the guy with the expensive haircut? He's not just a friend. He's working. That's a realtor. I squinted. A man in loafers and a button-down walking around with a drink. But his eyes kept scanning the property like he was measuring the yard with his mind. Tomorrow is the appointment, I said. Yeah, Derek said. And tonight is the warm-up. She's showing off the house, planting the idea. My stomach turned. Derek continued, we need to confirm ownership. Is the house still in your name? Yes, I said. Unless she forged something. Then we pull public records, he said. County recorder website. Property tax records. HOA contact. We build a clean chain. He typed on his phone. What's the address? I gave it. He pulled it up and nodded. Still shows you as owner. Good. But that doesn't stop someone from attempting a fraudulent sale if they can get a notary or mislead escrow. So she's trying to... I said more statement than question. Looks like it, Derek said. We need to identify the realtor and the brokerage. If she's using a real professional, they'll back off the second they smell fraud. If she's using a shady one, that's a different fight. My phone buzzed. A text. Just a single dot. From the number I'd written on that card. Madison. My chest tightened, but in a different way this time. Less panic, more focus. Derek saw my face that Yeah, I said, thumbs moving fast. I typed back. You okay? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then can't talk. She's watching. I stared at the screen, feeling that cold stillness settle in again. Derek leaned closer. Okay, here's what we do. You don't go in, not yet. We keep your sister calm. We document. Then we hit her with court orders before she can move money, move your kid, or move the house. I nodded, but my eyes were on the back door, on the glow of kitchen light through the window. Madison was in there somewhere, moving silently, like she was trying not to be noticed in her own home. Monique called back at 11:46 p.m. I have the emergency motion drafted, she said. I need you to email me the photos right now and sign a declaration. Derek can sign a declaration too if he's there and can describe what he observed. He's with me, I said. Good, she replied. I'm filing tonight. We'll request an early hearing. If the judge signs off, we can have an officer assist with removal and a restraining order. But you need to understand something. What I said. If your sister senses this coming, Monique said she may try to lock your daughter down tighter. She may try to move her. She may try to force a story. I looked at Derek. He was already watching the gates like he could see the future. And if she tries to move Madison tonight, I asked. Monique's voice went firm. Then you call 911 and report that your minor child is being unlawfully restrained and you fear she's being removed against her will. You do not threaten. You do not touch anyone. You let the system work, because we're about to put your sister in a legal vice. I hung up and started emailing photos fast. The packet, the appointment time, the brokerage logo, the staged listing shots. Derek dictated what he saw at the party. The gate, the realtor-like guy walking the property. Candace acting as host, Madison working the event. When I hit send, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Madison. One word this time, basement. My throat went dry. Because the laundry room wasn't the worst option anymore. It was the upgrade. The word basement sat on my screen like a threat. I stared at it until Derek snapped his fingers in front of my face. Hey, Reed, talk to me. I swallowed. Madison just texted one word. Derek leaned in. What word? I turned my phone so he could see it. His expression changed immediately. Not panic. Calculation. The look of someone who's seen enough ugly to know it usually gets worse before it gets better. Okay, he said quietly. That means your sister shifted her. Or she's warning you that's where she is now. My house doesn't even have a real basement, I said, already thinking through the layout. It has a lower level. Storage. Mechanical. The wine room I never used. People call anything below ground a basement, Derek said. What matters is why she's down there. My hands tightened around the phone. I wanted to march back and kick open doors and pull my kid out by force. The problem was Candace wanted that. She wanted me to lose it. She wanted the scene. A uniformed Navy mom snapping at a party, Candace would serve that story on a platter to any cop who showed up. So I forced myself to stay still. I typed back, "Are you hurt?" A pause. Then, "Not yet." I closed my eyes for half a second. Not yet. Like she had a schedule for when it would get worse. Derek watched the front of the house. We need hard proof your sister is escalating control. Courts move fast when there's immediate risk. We already filed, I said. Monique filed emergency. Good, Derek said. Now we need something to back it up. If the judge asks, why tonight? I looked at the driveway. People were still laughing, still drinking, still treating my home like a rental property for the rich and clueless. Then I saw movement near the side gate. Trevor, Candace's husband. The guy who always acted like he was above family drama while quietly benefiting from every dollar Candace touched. He was carrying a black duffel bag from the house to the SUV. Not a gym bag, a heavy bag. 2 hands. Derek lifted his camera. Click, click, click. What's in that, I asked. Paper cash laptops, Derek said. Anything that can disappear. Trevor went back inside and returned with another bag. Derek's jaw tightened. Yeah, they're cleaning. My phone buzzed again. Madison. She took my phone again. This is the only chance. She must have grabbed a spare device. An old tablet. Something Candace forgot existed. I typed, "Where are you exactly?" Madison, lower level. Door locks. She said I'm not coming upstairs. My throat tightened so hard it felt like swallowing glass. Derek leaned in. We can't go in without triggering them. But we can create a record. We can call for a welfare check, especially if you can articulate unlawful restraint. I don't want a random cop walking into my house with zero context, I said. Candace will charm them into leaving. Then we get context, Derek said. We get names. We get the realtor's info. We put pressure on the sale angle too. He pointed to the pre-listing packet again. That's your leverage. If your sister is trying to sell, she's not just being abusive. She's committing fraud. And fraud makes people nervous, I said. Fraud makes brokers nervous, Derek corrected. Fraud makes notaries nervous. Fraud makes judges very awake. Derek tapped his phone. I'm going to call the brokerage number off that packet. Not as you. As me. I'll ask questions. He dialed. It went to voicemail, of course. He left a message, calm and professional. He was verifying representation on a property. Had concerns about authorization, wanted a call back immediately. Then he looked at me. Now we need to document Madison's situation without putting her at risk. I stared at the house. The only way I could see Madison was if she came to a window. But she'd told me lower-level door locks. Probably no window, or the kind of tiny half window that faces a retaining wall. My mind ran through options like a checklist. Call 911 now, risk Candace performs innocence cops, call it civil. Madison pays later. Go in risk, Candace calls it. Interference uses, paper escalates physically. Wait for the court order. Risk. Candace moves Madison overnight. None of the options were clean. That's the part people don't talk about in family drama. It's not dramatic. It's logistical. It's chess with a kid's safety on the board. My phone buzzed. Monique. I answered instantly. Monique. Adriana, she said. I spoke to the on-call judge's clerk. We may get a signed temporary order before morning. But I need you to understand something. I'm listening, I said, even though I was barely breathing. If your sister tries to move your daughter tonight, Monique continued, you call 911 and you say exactly this. My minor child is being unlawfully restrained, and I fear she is being removed. I am the parent. There is no custody order giving my sister custody. You do not say family dispute. You do not say argument. You say minor and unlawfully restrained. Derek nodded like he approved. Monique added, also take photos of the real estate packet, the pre-listing appointment, and any evidence they're packing to leave. That supports the emergency injunction. We already took photos, I said. Good, she replied. Now tell me, is Madison safe in this moment? I looked at the house. I don't know. Monique's voice softened just enough to feel human. Okay, then we treat it like she isn't. I hung up and stared at my hands. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could manage crisis halfway across the world, but I couldn't protect my own child from my own sister without paperwork. Derek broke the silence. We can do one more thing tonight without going in. What I asked. We get a witness who isn't. You, Derek said. A neighbor. Someone who can say they've seen Madison treated like staff. Someone who's heard yelling. Someone who's noticed she never leaves. That'll take time, I said. Not as much as you think, Derek said. People notice. They just don't want to be first. He got out of the car and walked toward the sidewalk casual, like he was taking a phone call. He stopped near the property line, not trespassing, just visible enough to make the neighborhood cameras pick him up. I stayed in the car and watched. 5 minutes later, Derek was talking to a woman walking a dog. She looked over at the party, then back at Derek, her face tightening. Derek came back to the car and slid in. She knows, he said. Knows what I asked. She said she's seen your daughter outside late at night taking out trash, Derek replied. Barefoot. She said she's heard your sister yelling, calling her ungrateful. She didn't report it because she didn't want to be that neighbor. My stomach turned. Will she give a statement? She will if there's a court order, Derek said. And if you promise her she won't get dragged into a circus. I nodded. She won't. Derek checked his camera again. Trevor's still packing. That's not party cleanup. My phone buzzed again. Madison. She's mad. She's blaming me. I typed, keep your head down. If you can tell me if you hear them talking about leaving. Madison, she said tomorrow morning. She said you'll be gone by then. My chest tightened. Tomorrow morning wasn't just the pre-listing appointment. It was Candace's confidence that she could outmaneuver me before sunrise. I stared at the packet in my lap, and something clicked. Candace wasn't trying to sell the house the normal way. She was trying to sell it fast. Quiet. before I could lock anything down, which meant she needed someone willing to play loose with rules. A realtor who didn't ask too many questions. A notary who didn't verify too hard. Maybe an escrow company that moved quickly. And if she had that kind of pipeline, she'd used it before. I looked at Derek. I want you to find out who her notary is. Derek raised an eyebrow. That's specific. Because normal people don't talk about authorization like it's a weapon, I said. They don't change security systems and hide kids and plan a sale overnight. Derek nodded once. Okay. I'll run her. Full background. Who she's connected to, where she banks, who she's paying. My phone buzzed again, and this time it wasn't Madison. It was a new number calling. No name, just digits. Derek glanced at it. You expecting anyone? No, I said. I answered anyway. Hello. Candace's voice came through low and smooth, like she was trying to sound reasonable. Where did you go, Adriana? She asked. Because Madison is crying and saying you scared her. I held my phone away from my ear for half a second, like it might be toxic. Then I brought it back and said, calm, I went to get air. Candace laughed softly. You always do that thing where you pretend you're calm. It's cute. I didn't respond. Candace's continued, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come back inside. You're going to apologize for making things awkward. And tomorrow you're going to leave. I'm not leaving, I said. There was a pause. Then Candace's voice went colder. Yes, you are, she said. Because if you don't, I'll make one call and you'll spend the night explaining yourself to the police while Madison stays right here. I looked at Derek. He was already recording on his phone, eyes locked on me. Candace added, and Adriana, don't forget, you signed the paper, you gave me the power. My voice stayed even. You didn't earn it. Candace's laugh was short. I don't need to earn what you handed me. She hung up. Derek exhaled through his nose. That was helpful. What I asked. That threat, he said. We just got it recorded. That's not family drama. That's coercion. My phone buzzed one more time. Madison, I heard the lock. And without even thinking, my body leaned forward toward the house, like the decision had already been made somewhere deeper than my brain. I stared at Madison's message. I heard the lock, and my vision narrowed so hard I could have threaded a needle in the dark. Derek put a hand up like a traffic cop. No, I'm not going to hurt anyone, I said. I know, he replied. That's why you're dangerous right now. You're going to do something righteous and illegal at the same time. He wasn't wrong. I forced myself to inhale slow, then exhale. Then I typed back to Madison, stay quiet, stay safe. If you can tell me if you hear Trevor or Candace talking about leaving. 3 dots appeared, then I'll try. Derek looked at the house. Your sister is tightening control because she senses you moving. That's the pattern. And she thinks she can scare me off with a police threat, I said. She can't scare you, Derek said. She can delay you. And delaying you is her whole plan. He tapped the real estate packet. Tomorrow morning is her showtime. She's planning to present herself as the decision maker. If she gets a realtor in there and starts the process, she'll use it as a shield. I'm selling. It's a business matter. My sister is unstable. And if the system thinks it's a business matter, it moves slow, I said. Exactly, Derek replied. So we hit her where she's sloppy. What's sloppy, I asked. Derek gave me a look like I should already know. Her ego. He was right. Candace didn't just want money. She wanted the story. She wanted to be seen as the woman in charge. And people like Candace love one thing more than control an audience. My phone buzzed again. Monique, I answered immediately. Tell me we have something. We have movement, Monique said. The emergency motion is in. The clerk flagged it as urgent. We may have a signed temporary order by morning. By morning isn't good enough if she moves Madison tonight, I said. I know, Monique replied. But listen, your sister just gave you a gift. The call, I said. Yes, Monique said. That threat is useful. Also, that real estate packet. It tells me she's trying to act as if she has authority she doesn't. That's fraud territory. Judges hate fraud. So what do we do tonight? I asked. Monique paused for half a second, then said, we document. We don't escalate physically, but we can set a legal trap. Derek mouthed, there it is. Monique continued, do you have the name of the brokerage? Yes, I said. Logo and contact info, I emailed everything. Good, she said. I'm going to send a notice of dispute to that brokerage, and if I can identify escrow to them as well. But you and Derek can do something else. What I asked. You can provoke your sister into demonstrating her lack of authority, Monique said. Not by yelling, not by threatening. By offering her exactly what she wants. Derek nodded like he'd heard this play before. A buyer, I said. Monique's voice sharpened. A buyer, or a buyer's representative. Someone who comes with cash language and no patience. Your sister will talk. She will overstate her rights. She will make claims she shouldn't make. And if she produces paperwork that's altered or false, that's a big deal. I stared at the house. Candace's voice was still floating over music, still hosting, still acting like this was her kingdom. She'll jump at it, I said. She will, Monique agreed, because greed makes people sloppy. I looked at Derek. Can you do it? Derek didn't hesitate. I can. I look like a guy who says cash and means it. Monique added. Keep it clean, no entrapment nonsense. You're not law enforcement. You're just gathering evidence of representations she's choosing to make. I understand, I said. We're not tricking her into a confession. We're letting her hang herself with her own mouth. Exactly, Monique said. Also, do not let Madison know you're doing this. If your sister senses Madison is communicating, she'll clamp down harder. My throat tightened. She already did. Madison said she heard the lock. Monique's voice went firm. Then your focus is Madison's safety. If you get any indication she's being physically harmed or removed, you call 911 immediately. I will, I said. I hung up and looked at Derek. We need a buyer persona. Derek pulled out his phone and started typing. Easy. Evan Price. Private investor. I've used variants before, not fake documents, just a name and a reason. Reason I asked. Derek pointed at the packet. This house is the reason. It sells itself. We drove to a 24-hour coffee shop 5 minutes away. Not because I needed caffeine, I was already vibrating, but because we needed light Wi-Fi and a place to speak without Candace's cameras. If she changed my security system, she could have added indoor cameras. I wasn't giving her free intel. At the coffee shop, Derek made 2 calls. First to the brokerage number from the packet. This time someone answered. Pacific Crest Realty, a woman said. Hi, Derek, said friendly and confident. I'm calling about the property on Ocean, your pre-listing appointment tomorrow morning. I'm a buyer's rep. My client is interested in a quick purchase. Is the property listed? The woman asked. Not yet, Derek said, but we were told it could move fast. Cash, no contingencies. We'd like to view tonight or early morning. There was a pause. We don't usually do showings before listing. Derek leaned into it. My client is flying out. If it's not possible, we move on. Silence again. Then, who are you speaking with? Candace Reed, Derek said smoothly. Property manager? That phrase was a grenade. Derek tossed it and waited. The woman's tone shifted. The owner is Adriana Reed. Derek didn't blink. Correct. My understanding is Candace is authorized to act on the owner's behalf. Another pause. We'll need confirmation of that. Bingo! Derek lowered his voice like he was being helpful. She said she has paperwork. Then we'll need to see it, the woman said. And if she has authorization, we can schedule something. Derek smiled at me and held up one finger. Step 1. He hung up and immediately called a second number 1 we found on the packet under preferred notary services. It could have been nothing, but it was worth checking. A man answered sleepy and annoyed. Derek said, Hey, quick question. I'm calling for Candace Reed. She asked about notarizing a signature for a property document. Can you handle that tonight? The man snapped awake. Not property transfer without the signer present. Derek kept his tone light. Of course. She mentioned she had power of attorney. You got the POA document. The moment, the man asked. Derek glanced at me. She said she did. Then email it, the man said. I don't touch it if it looks off. Too much liability. Derek hung up and exhaled. So either she's dealing with someone who still has a spine, or she's shopping for someone who doesn't. I stared at my coffee I hadn't touched. She'll shop. Derek nodded. Which means she's rushing. Which means she'll make mistakes. We drove back and parked where we could see the house. The party was winding down. People were leaving in groups, laughing loud, careless. Candace walked them out like a politician on election night. Smiling, waving, acting like the world loved her. Derek texted a number he'd gotten from the brokerage conversation, an assistant who was now curious, if not suspicious. He requested a viewing tonight, discreet cash. The assistant replied, need authorization from owner, or signed rep agreement. Derek showed me the screen. Your sister will hate that. I love that, I said. Derek typed again. Candace Reed said she has documents. We can meet at the property in 30 minutes. Quick walkthrough. We'll bring proof of funds. The assistant replied, I'll confirm with Candace. Derek tucked the phone away. Now we wait and watch her scramble. We didn't have to wait long. Candace stormed out the back door and onto the patio phone in hand pacing. Even from the car, I could see her posture change. That polished host energy was gone. This was Candace under pressure. My phone buzzed again. Madison, she's yelling. She's coming down here. My heart slammed. Derek's voice went low. This is the risk. When you squeeze her money plan, she takes it out on the kid. I typed fast, don't argue, stay quiet. If she touches you, you call 911 from any phone you can. Madison, I don't have a phone. I stared at the screen, rage rising again. Derek started the car. We can't sit here if she's going downstairs. If we go in, she calls police, I said. If we do nothing, she hurts Madison, Derek replied. So we position ourselves. We keep eyes. We're ready to call 911 the second we have enough to say, unlawful restraint, without it sounding like family drama. We rolled forward slowly, just enough to be closer without announcing ourselves. Candace disappeared inside. The patio lights dimmed. The last guests left. The house went quiet in that unnatural way big houses do, like they're holding secrets in the walls. Then my phone buzzed again. Not a text. A call. From the brokerage assistant. I answered. Hello? Hi, she said cautious. Is this Candace? No, I said. This is Adriana Reed. I own that house. There was a beat of stunned silence. Then she said very carefully, Ma'am, Candace told us she had authority to list the property. I kept my voice calm. She doesn't. Another silence. Then, should we still come tomorrow morning? I stared at the dark house, thinking of Madison, behind a locked door under my own floor. And I said, You're not coming tomorrow. You're coming right now with a witness and your camera on. I ended the call and immediately felt Derek's eyes on me. You just invited a realtor to a family hostage situation, he said. I invited a witness, I replied, and a camera that isn't mine. Derek didn't argue. He just nodded once like, fine. Then his jaw tightened. Okay. But if your sister is downstairs with Madison right now, we're on a clock. My phone buzzed again. Madison, she took the tablet. I can't text. That message hit like a door slamming. I stared at it then at the house, and for the first time all night, I felt something close to fear. Not fear of Candace. Fear of what Candace could do when nobody was watching. Derek reached across the console and tapped my phone. Do you have any other way to contact Madison? No, I said. That's it. Then you assume she's cut off, he said. Which means we stop playing nice. We're not doing anything illegal, I said automatically. Derek gave me a look. I'm not talking about illegal. I'm talking about real. He was right. The trap worked. We'd poked Candace's money plan and she went straight for control. That's the kind of person she was. When she felt threatened, she didn't negotiate. She tightened her fist. I opened my phone and called Monique again. She answered like she'd been waiting. Talk to me. Madison can't communicate anymore, I said. Candace went downstairs. We have reason to believe she locked Madison in. Monique's voice went sharp. Do you have any confirmation of a lock? Any text saying locked? She texted earlier. I heard the lock, I said. And now she just said Candace took the tablet. That may be enough for a welfare check, Monique said. If you fear unlawful restraint, you can call 911. But you have to be precise. Derek leaned in. Tell her about the threat call. I added Candace threatened to call police and keep Madison if I didn't leave. We recorded it. Monique exhaled. Good. Here's what I want. Call 911. Say your minor child is being unlawfully restrained in your home. Say you fear harm and removal. Say you have documentation and a pending emergency motion. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Okay. And Adriana Monique said, lowering her voice, do not confront Candace alone. Let law enforcement be the line. Your job is to keep Madison calm once she's safe. I hung up and stared at the phone for half a second. Calling 911 on my own house felt surreal. Like I was reporting a crime at a place I built to be safe. Then I did it. The dispatcher answered. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Adriana Reed, I said. I'm the homeowner at 2847 Ocean Boulevard. My 17-year-old daughter is inside, and I believe she's being unlawfully restrained by my sister. My daughter was sleeping in a laundry room and was moved to the lower level. She told me she heard the lock. My sister just cut off her communication. I fear harm. The dispatcher's tone shifted. Not dramatic, but attentive. Are you on scene? Yes, I said. I'm in a car near the property. Is anyone injured? I don't know, I said. That's the problem. My sister threatened to call police and keep my daughter if I didn't leave. I have that recorded. Okay, she said. Officers are being dispatched for a welfare check. Do not enter the residence. Wait where you are. I looked at Derek. He gave a small nod. Good call. The next 5 minutes felt like 50. The house was mostly dark now, except for a faint light from the kitchen. No movement outside. No music. No guests. Just silence. The kind that makes you imagine all the worst possibilities. Derek kept his eyes on the back door. If Trevor tries to move her, he'll go out the side gate. My hands were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palm. Then headlights swept across the driveway. Not police. A small sedan. The realtor assistant. She'd actually come. 2 people stepped outer. And a guy holding a phone like he was ready to record. Not a cop, not a hero, just someone who didn't want to be sued later. Perfect. They walked up the front path and stopped when they saw the gate still open. Derek muttered, "This is going to get loud." I got out of the car and met them halfway staying on the sidewalk. The assistant looked nervous. "Ms. Reed." "Yes," I said. "Thank you for coming." She glanced at the house. Candace said, "Candace is not authorized to list my property," I said, calm. "And my daughter is inside and not safe." Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. Please don't go in," I said. "Police are on the way. I need you to witness that Candace represented she had authority. If you have any messages from her, keep them." The assistant swallowed and nodded, holding her phone tighter. "I have texts and emails." "Good," I said. "Don't delete anything." We all heard it at the same time. A door slam inside the house. Hard, angry. Then Candace's voice muffled through glass, sharp and furious. "Who is out there?" The porch light flicked on. Candace appeared behind the front window, like a villain in a bad movie who thinks she's the star. She opened the front door and stepped out in her robe, like she hadn't just been hosting a party 20 minutes ago. Hair pulled back, face tight, eyes wild. When she saw the realtor assistant, her expression flipped instantly. Smile, soft voice, friendly. "Hi," Candace chirped. "Oh, you came early. That's great." Then she saw me. The smile froze. "What are you doing?" she demanded. I kept my voice even. "Making sure you don't commit fraud." Candace's eyes flashed. "This is my home." The realtor assistant shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, we need to confirm owner authorization before—" Candace cut her off, snapping, "I have authorization." I lifted my chin toward the assistant. "Ask her to show it." Candace's mouth tightened. She glanced back at the house like she wanted to run inside and grab something. Then she looked at me and hissed low enough only I could hear, "You are not doing this." "Actually," I said quietly, "I am." Candace turned to the assistant with forced cheer. "Of course. It's inside. Come in." "No," I said immediately. Candace's smile sharpened. "Excuse me." I stepped forward, half a pace. "Police are coming for a welfare check. Nobody goes inside until they arrive." Candace's eyes widened, offended. "You called the police on me." "I called the police for my child," I said. Candace's voice rose. "This is harassment." The assistant looked between us. "Ms. Reed, is your daughter okay?" Candace snapped. "She's fine." I didn't look away from Candace. "Then bring her to the door." Candace laughed cold. "She's asleep." "At midnight," I said. "After you just slammed a door." Candace's face twitched. "She's a teenager. They sleep." "Bring her to the door," I repeated steady. Candace took one step forward, and for a second, I thought she was going to hit me. Then she remembered there were witnesses. Instead, she leaned in and said through her teeth, "If you ruin this for me, I will ruin you." I smiled once, not happy, controlled. "You already tried," I said. "You just weren't as good at it as you think." Candace turned and marched back into the house, slamming the door behind her. The assistant whispered, "Is she going to bring your daughter?" I listened. Footsteps inside. Fast, then quieter, then nothing. "No, Madison." My stomach dropped again. Derek's voice was low beside me. "She's not bringing her." We heard a muffled shout from inside. Candace's voice, angry, harsh, not performative anymore. Then a thump. A sound that made every muscle in my body go rigid. The assistant's eyes went wide. "What was that?" I didn't answer, because if I spoke, I'd break the rule I was clinging to: don't go in. Don't give Candace what she wants. Headlights flashed at the end of the street. 2 police cruisers turned the corner. Candace opened the door again, calm face back on, like she'd been practicing in a mirror. She stepped onto the porch and said, "Sweet as pie, officers, thank goodness. My sister is causing a disturbance." One of the officers looked at me. "Ma'am, are you Adriana Reed?" "Yes," I said. "That's my house. My daughter is inside. I believe she's being unlawfully restrained." Candace gasped dramatically. "Unlawfully restrained? That's insane." The officer held up a hand. "Okay, we're going to check on the child." Candace blocked the doorway with her body. "You can't come in without a warrant." The officer's face didn't change. "Ma'am, we're conducting a welfare check." Candace's smile cracked. "She's fine." "Then you won't mind us seeing her," the officer said. Candace's didn't move. And that was the moment the whole situation stopped being family drama and turned into something the law takes seriously. Because nobody blocks a welfare check unless they're hiding something. The officer didn't raise his voice, but his tone carried that calm authority you only get from dealing with people who think rules are optional. "Ma'am," he said to Candace, "step aside." Candace pressed one hand to her chest, like she was auditioning for a daytime courtroom show. "This is outrageous. She abandoned her child for years, and now she's here trying to kidnap her." I didn't flinch. I'd heard louder threats in quieter places. The officer glanced at me. Is that true? No, I said. I'm active duty Navy. I have documentation of support. She's my daughter. I want a welfare check. That's it. Candace snapped documentation, please. She sends money and thinks that makes her a mother. The realtor assistant shifted uncomfortably beside me, phone still up recording, like she was watching a car accident she didn't want to admit she couldn't look away from. The second officer moved toward the doorway. Ma'am, if the child is fine, you'll let us see her. Candace's eyes flashed. You can't enter without welfare check, the officer repeated. We're not here to debate custody on the porch. We're here to confirm a minor's safety. Candace didn't move. The officer's gaze narrowed slightly. Last chance, ma'am. Candace's smile went stiff. Fine. Come in. But you're all going to regret encouraging her. She stepped back just enough to let them pass. Not willingly. Like she was being forced to surrender a stage. The officers entered first. Derek followed a step behind, staying quiet. I stayed at the threshold until the officer nodded for me to come in. The house smelled like perfume and spilled champagne. The kind of scent that clings to walls after people leave like a lie that won't evaporate. Candace led them toward the living room, talking fast. Madison is asleep. She's exhausted. She's had a rough time. Teenagers are emotional. Adriana is dramatic. This is all a misunderstanding. The officer held up a hand. We'll speak to Madison directly. Candace's eyes darted toward the hallway that led to the lower level. That was enough. The officer turned. Where is she sleeping? Candace hesitated, then said downstairs. Take us, the officer said. Candace's face tightened. It's not necessary. She's fine. Take us, the officer repeated. And this time there was no room for Candace's performance. We moved as a group through the house. Candace in front. Officers behind. Me close enough to see if Candace tried to bolt. Derek trailing like a shadow. At the door to the lower level, Candace stopped. It wasn't a normal interior door anymore. It had a keypad. A keypad. My house. My doors. My money. And Candace installed a keypad on the door leading to where my kids slept. The officer looked at it. Unlock it. Candace forced a laugh. It's just for storage. We had some break-ins in the neighborhood. Unlock it, he said again. Candace punched in a code, hands shaking slightly. The keypad beeped. The lock clicked. The officer opened the door and started down the stairs. Candace started talking again, voice high. You're all overreacting. She's safe. She's just... The officer didn't respond. I followed, heart hammering now. Not with chaos. With focus. Like walking into a room you already know will be ugly, but you need eyes on it anyway. The lower level was dim. The air was cooler. Concrete and cleaning products smell. Storage shelves. A couple of boxes. The mechanical room, and then farther down a door with a deadbolt. A deadbolt. The officer stopped at it. Who's behind this door? Candace's lips tightened. Madison! Why is it locked? He asked. Candace shrugged like it was normal. She locks it, for privacy. The officer looked at her. Unlock it. Candace's jaw worked. I don't have the key. I laughed once, short and bitter. Of course you don't. Candace shot me a glare. She has it. The officer extended his hand. Then you call her. Tell her to open it. Candace hesitated, then knocked on the door. Madison, open up. Silence. She knocked harder. Madison opened the door. Now. No response. The officer leaned closer, voice firm, but not shouting. Madison. This is the police. We're here to make sure you're safe. Can you open the door? For a second, nothing. Then a small sound. A shuffle. The deadbolt clicked. The door opened just a crack, and Madison's face appeared. Her eyes were red. Her hair was messy. Her skin looked dull under the basement light. And the first thing she did wasn't look at Candace. She looked at me. And she didn't say Mom. She just breathed out like her body finally realized it was allowed to inhale. The officer spoke gently. Hi. Can we talk to you for a minute? Madison glanced at Candace, instinctive fear flickering across her face. Candace snapped. Madison, tell them you're fine. The officer turned his head slightly toward Candace. Ma'am, stop. Madison's shoulders sagged like she'd been holding them up for months. The officer asked, Are you safe here? Madison hesitated. Candace's mouth opened, ready to fill the air with words. I kept my voice low. Mads, you don't have to protect her. Madison swallowed, and the words came out small but clear. No. Candace laughed sharp. Oh my God, she's being dramatic. She's mad because I set rules. The officer didn't react to Candace. He stayed with Madison. Has anyone hurt you? Madison's eyes flickered down to her wrist, then back up. Not like that. Candace scoffed. See? She's fine. The officer's expression didn't change. Has anyone threatened you? Madison's voice got quieter. She said, If I tell anyone, I'll go into foster care. She said my mom doesn't want me. Candace's face went pale for half a second before she recovered. That's not what I meant. Madison's eyes flashed. Yes, it is. There it was. Not a whisper, not a secret, a direct contradiction. Candace stepped forward. Madison, you are confused. The officer stepped between them. Ma'am, you need to give her space. Candace's voice rose. This is my house. You're letting her poison my child. The officer turned to me. Ma'am, do you have proof of identity and your relationship? I handed him my ID. Military ID. Driver's license. And a photo on my phone of Madison and me on a pier when she was 10, both of us sunburned and laughing. He nodded. Okay. Candace snapped. That proves nothing. I have paperwork. The officer looked at her. Show me. Candace stormed back up the stairs, heels clicking like she was going to retrieve a weapon. Derek leaned close to me. Watch her. She's going for the folder. Madison's hand found mine shaky. The officer said to Madison, Do you want to leave with your mother tonight? Madison's throat bobbed. She looked up at me like she didn't trust good things anymore. I said softly, You can, and nobody gets to punish you for it. Madison nodded once. Yes. Upstairs, Candace's voice echoed down the stairwell. I have legal authority. She signed it. She came back down, waving the caregiver authorization like it was a badge. The officer read it for 10 seconds and handed it back. This is not a custody order, he said flatly. Candace froze. What? This allows you to assist with medical and school matters, he said. It does not give you custody. It does not allow you to confine a minor behind a locked door. And it does not allow you to block a welfare check. Candace's face flushed. She's lying. Madison is lying. Adriana is manipulating her. The officer turned to his partner. We need to separate them. Candace's voice spiked. No, you can't take her. She's mine. That sentence made everyone still for a half second. Even Candace, like she realized she'd said the quiet part out loud. I felt Madison's fingers tighten around mine. The officer's tone hardened. Ma'am, step back. Candace didn't. Then the officer's radio crackled upstairs. A third voice came through another officer at the top of the stairs. Hey, we've got a unit out front with a civil paperwork service. They've got something for Adriana Reed. Derek's eyebrows lifted. I turned confused. What? The officer upstairs called down, It's a court order. My pulse kicked up again, but this time it wasn't dread. It was momentum. Monique had done what she said she'd do. The officer at the bottom of the stairs looked at me. Ma'am, go upstairs and receive it. I squeezed Madison's hand. Stay with them. Don't move. Madison nodded, eyes locked on mine. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time. Not running, but moving like someone who finally had the right tool in hand. At the front door, a uniformed officer handed me a stapled packet. Adriana Reed, he asked. Yes. You've been served, he said, and then seeing my face added, It's in your favor. I flipped to the top page. Temporary custody. Protective order. Emergency injunction. Candace was behind me in the hallway, breathing hard. I turned slightly so she could see the header. Her eyes widened, and for the first time all night, she didn't have a speech ready. She just stared at the paper like it was a death certificate for the story she'd been telling. Then her face twisted. She lunged for it, and the officer stepped between us before her fingers could touch a single page. Candace's hand shot out for the papers like she could grab reality and crumple it. The officer blocked her with one smooth step, palm up. Ma'am, back up! Candace snapped. That's my sister's paperwork. It's family business. The officer didn't blink. It's a court order, and you are not entitled to it. Candace's face flushed. This is insane, she abandoned. I held the packet higher so she could see the bold words again. Temporary custody order. Protective order. Emergency injunction. You can keep saying abandoned, I said calm. The judge didn't buy it. Candace's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like someone who'd been slapped without being touched. The realtor assistant was still outside on the porch phone, up catching everything. Candace noticed and snapped her gaze toward her. You, Candace hissed, stepping toward the door. Stop recording! The assistant took a step back. Ma'am, I'm documenting a dispute of authority on a listing. Candace scoffed. Authority I have. You had a story, I said. You don't have authority. Candace whipped around to me. You think a piece of paper makes you win? It's not a piece of paper, I said. It's the law. And for once, it's faster than your mouth. One of the officers stepped closer. Ms. Reed, the protective order means you are to have no contact with Madison tonight. You need to stand back. Candace laughed loud and bitter. No contact. She lives in my house. The officer's tone stayed even. Not tonight, and not now. Candace's eyes went sharp. This is my home. She can leave. I glanced at the injunction page. Actually, you can leave. Candace stared. What? I turned the packet so she could read. The emergency injunction stopped any attempt to sell, transfer, or encumber the property. And it also reinforced that she had no rights to control access to it. Candace's face changed, not anger panic, because now she didn't just risk losing Madison. She risked losing the mansion, the party life, the illusion. Everything she'd been enjoying as if it were hers. "You can't do this," she said, voice cracking just slightly. "You can't just show up and take everything." "I'm not taking anything I said. I'm recovering what you tried to steal." Downstairs I heard movement. The officers were bringing Madison up. I moved toward the stairs and Candace's head snapped in that direction, like a predator hearing prey. "No," she said sharply. "Madison, stay down there." The officer cut her off. "Ma'am, stop." Madison appeared on the stairs, step by careful step, holding the railing like her legs didn't trust the floor. Her eyes found mine immediately. She looked like she was bracing for Candace to scream, to punish, to drag her back. But Candace couldn't touch her now, not with cops in the hallway and a protective order in my hand. Madison reached the landing, and she flinched when Candace stepped forward. The officer stepped between them again. No contact. Candace's voice went high. "Madison, you're being manipulated." Madison's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. She looked at me, then at Candace, and her voice came out steadier than her hands. "You locked me in," she said. Candace scoffed. "For your own good." Madison swallowed hard. "You said my mom didn't want me." Candace's face tightened. "I said your mom wasn't here." "You said foster care," Madison said, and her voice got stronger as she said it. "You said if I told anyone, you'd make sure I disappeared." The hallway went quiet. Even the officers looked at Candace differently now. Candace's eyes darted around, searching for a new angle. "She's exaggerating." Derek stepped forward from the side, finally speaking. "Ma'am, I have a recorded call of you threatening to call police to keep her. You said you had power. You said she was staying." Candace snapped toward him. "Who are you?" Derek smiled like he'd been waiting. "I'm the guy who watches people like you make mistakes." Candace's breathing went shallow. She turned back to me, eyes pleading now, like we were suddenly sisters again. "Adriana," she said, voice dropping into a softer register. "Let's not do this. We can talk. Privately." I almost laughed. "Privately is where you do your best work, Candace." "No thanks." The officer turned to me. "Ma'am, we can escort you and your daughter out now." "Yes," I said, "and I want her phone, her accounts, anything you took." Candace threw her hands up. "I didn't take anything. She loses things." Madison's voice cut through sharp and quiet. "It's in your nightstand." Candace froze. Madison kept going, words coming out like she'd been holding them in behind her teeth for months. "My phone is in your nightstand. My iPad is in the kitchen drawer. My school password is written on a sticky note in your planner because you changed it." Candace's face did something ugly, not just anger, exposure. The officer looked at Candace. "Ma'am, is that true?" Candace snapped. "This is ridiculous." "Then you won't mind us retrieving the items," the officer said. Candace opened her mouth to argue, then shut it. Because the hallway was full of witnesses, and her usual tricks weren't working. One officer went with Madison to point out where the devices were. Madison moved cautiously, like she expected punishment for even walking upstairs. I stayed close, not hovering, just present. Candace watched us like we were stealing from her. Then Trevor appeared. He came out of the back hallway, half-dressed, eyes wide, like he'd been trying to stay invisible, and just realized invisibility wasn't an option anymore. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. Candace spun toward him. "They're kidnapping Madison!" Trevor looked at the officers, then at the court papers in my hand, and his face drained of color. "Candace, what did you do?" Candace snapped, "Shut up." Derek's phone pinged, and he glanced down. "Oh, this is interesting." "What I asked." He held up the screen. "The brokerage assistant just sent me the texts." Candace told them she was authorized. She pushed for a fast listing. She mentioned a notary. Candace's head jerked. "Give me that." Derek turned the phone away like she was a toddler reaching for a knife. "No." One of the officers looked at the assistant outside. "Ma'am, do you have those communications saved?" "Yes," she said, voice shaky. "Emails and texts." She said she had owner authorization. The officer nodded. "We may need those." Candace's face went blank. That's what happens when someone realizes their words have consequences outside their own bubble. I opened the injunction page and pointed at the line about transfer attempts. "You tried to sell my house." Candace snapped. I was exploring options. With my name on the deed, I said. Candace's voice rose again, desperate. "You weren't here. You left everything to me." "I didn't leave you my house," I said. "I left you school forms." Madison came back holding her phone like it was a fragile artifact. The officer had it in an evidence bag now because at this point, it wasn't just a phone. It was proof. It was control. Madison looked at Candace, then at me, and for the first time that night, she stood tall. Candace's eyes narrowed. You think you're brave now? The officer stepped closer. Ma'am, enough. Candace ignored him and aimed the next shot at me, because that's what people like her do. They go for the weak spot. You know what your daughter will remember, Candace said, voice dripping. That you showed up late, that you let me raise her, that you ruined her life with your selfish career. Madison's jaw tightened. She looked at me like she was waiting to see if I'd crumble. I didn't. I smiled slightly. Candace, the only thing you raised was your own ego. Candace's face twisted, and she stepped forward again, forgetting the protective order for just 1 second. The officer grabbed her arm and held it. Ma'am, he said, voice firm now, you are violating a protective order by approaching the minor and the protected party. Step back. Candace yanked her arm, rage and panic mixing. Get off me! Turn around, the officer said. Candace's eyes went wide. You're kidding. The officer didn't change expression. Turn around. Candace looked around the hallway, searching for anyone to save her. Trevor didn't move. The realtor assistant didn't move. Derek didn't move. Madison didn't move. Candace swallowed hard. This is unbelievable. Yeah, I said quietly. That's kind of your brand. The officer guided her hands behind her back. Candace started talking fast, pleading now. Wait, I didn't. This is my sister. This is family. I leaned in just enough for her to hear me, and only her. You stopped being family the second you locked my kid behind a door, I said. Candace's eyes filled with anger, and something like fear as the cuffs clicked. Madison's fingers slid into mine again, and this time she didn't pull away when Candace looked at her. Candace twisted to face Madison, voice sharp one last time. You're making a mistake. Madison's voice was steady. No, you did. The officer started walking Candace toward the front door. And for the first time in a long time, the house felt like it belonged to the people who were actually supposed to live in it. Madison didn't let go of my hand until Candace was out of sight, and honestly, I didn't let go either. The officers walked Candace to the porch. Trevor followed a few steps behind like he couldn't decide if he was angry or terrified. The realtor assistant backed away from the door, still recording, then lowered her phone like she'd just realized she was standing in the middle of someone else's nightmare. Candace was still talking as they guided her down the front steps. This is insane, she barked. She can't do this. She's not even here. She's never here. The officer stayed calm. Ma'am, you're being detained for violating a protective order and interfering with a welfare check. We'll sort the rest out with the court. Candace twisted her head toward me. Adriana, you're going to regret this. I kept my voice level. Candace, I'm going to forget you for a while. That's worse. Trevor stepped forward. Hold on, she didn't mean. Candace snapped at him without turning her head. Shut up, Trevor. That was all I needed to hear about their marriage. An officer approached me at the doorway. Ma'am, your daughter is safe to leave with you tonight. Do you have a place to go? Yes, I said, and then realized I hadn't actually planned that far, because my entire brain had been focused on one thing. Get Madison out. Derek answered for me, already thinking. I have a place nearby. Quiet. Secure. They can stay there tonight. I looked at him. You sure? He shrugged. I've slept on worse furniture for less important reasons. Madison's eyes stayed on the patrol cars as Candace was placed in the back seat. She didn't look satisfied. She looked stunned, like her body was waiting for the punishment that usually came after she spoke up. The officer handed me a card. If Candace contacts you or shows up, call immediately. The protective order is active. Do not engage. I won't, I said. Then the officer's partner stepped out, holding a small evidence bag, with Madison's phone, the tablet, and a notebook Derek had pointed out from Candace's office notes about the listing names, appointment times. All the little details Candace thought were harmless, until someone with a badge started reading them. You'll get these back once we document them, the officer said. Your lawyer can coordinate. Monique, I should call her. I did right there in the entryway. She answered on the first ring. Tell me, she said. She's in cuffs, I replied. Monique didn't cheer. She didn't celebrate. Her tone stayed steady. Good. Is Madison safe? Yes, I said. She's coming with me. Then your mission is completed for tonight, Monique said. Tomorrow we move the legal pieces. Custody hearing confirmation. Longer restraining order. Injunction enforcement. Also the real estate angle, your sister's texts and representations to the brokerage may trigger fraud reporting. Derek leaned close, listening. Monique continued. Do not go back to arguing with family members. Candace may try to contact you through others. Don't respond. Document everything. I glanced at Trevor, still on the porch, watching like he wanted to say something, but didn't know what wouldn't get him arrested. I won't respond, I said. I hung up and finally turned fully to Madison. Do you want to take anything? I asked. Madison blinked like she hadn't been asked what she wanted in a long time. Like, What? Clothes, I said. Shoes, your stuff. Madison's shoulders tensed. She'll get mad. I softened my voice. She doesn't get a vote anymore. Madison swallowed. Okay. We went upstairs together. Not rushed, but quick. Derek stayed near the hallway, and one officer remained inside for a few minutes to make sure nobody tried anything dumb. Madison opened a closet and flinched before she reached in like she expected Candace to appear and snap her hand away. Inside the closet was half empty. A few hangers, a couple of folded shirts. Nothing like a teenager's space. Where's your stuff? I asked. Madison hesitated. She said I didn't need much. The anger that rose in me wasn't explosive. It was surgical. The kind that makes you very, very careful about what you do next. Madison pulled out a small duffel bag from under the bed. Not even a suitcase. A duffel. She started packing 2 pairs of jeans, a few shirts, a hoodie, toiletries, a notebook, a worn paperback with dog-eared pages, a pair of earbuds. Then she opened the drawer and grabbed a crumpled envelope. What's that? I asked. Madison's cheeks flushed. Letters. From who? She looked away. From you. The ones you mailed. She kept them in her office. I took them back. My throat tightened, but I didn't go soft. Not tonight. Tonight was about control returning to Madison, not me drowning in feelings. Good, I said simply. Keep them. We walked back downstairs. Madison stopped near the laundry room door and stared at it for a second, like it was a bruise on the house. You don't have to go in, I said. Madison's voice was quiet. I just can't believe that was normal for a while. It wasn't normal, I said. It was survival. Outside, the street was calm again. Candace's guests were gone. Her party lights were still on, but without the noise they looked cheap, like someone tried to decorate over a problem. We got into Derek's car and drove to his place. A modest condo, clean and quiet. He had a spare room with a real bed and clean sheets. Madison stood in the doorway like she didn't know if she was allowed to enter. Derek tossed her the spare key. Bathroom's down the hall. If you want food, there's cereal and frozen pizza. This is not a fancy operation. Madison stared at the key, then whispered, Thank you. Derek grunted like gratitude made him uncomfortable. Yeah. Don't make it weird. He left us alone. Madison sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. Then she looked up at me like she finally had space to ask the question that had been boiling under her skin. Why did you believe her? She asked. I didn't flinch. I didn't defend myself. I didn't make excuses. I believed the version of her I wanted to be true, I said. And I believed paperwork meant safety. I was wrong. Madison's eyes filled. I thought you didn't want me. I always wanted you, I said firm. Candace wanted you to think I didn't, because that made you easier to control. Madison nodded slowly, like her brain was rearranging something heavy. I reached for her phone in the evidence bag the officer had returned temporarily after photos. It was still locked, but Madison knew the code. She typed it in with shaking fingers. Messages flooded in. Missed calls, school notifications, unread texts from friends that were months old. Madison stared at the screen stunned. She was deleting things. I know, I said. Madison's shoulders sagged. I feel stupid. You're not stupid, I said. You are isolated. That's what control does. It makes survival look like agreement. There was a knock at the door. Derek. He held up his phone. Update, he said. Brochure lady emailed again. She's forwarding all Candace communications to Monique. Broker's legal department is already involved. I nodded. Good. Derek added, also Trevor called a friend of mine. He's trying to distance himself, saying Candace did everything. I snorted. Of course he is. Derek smirked. I told him the world's smallest violin is on back order. He left again, shutting the door. Madison stared at me for a second, then let out a small, shaky laugh. Not happy, not healed, just a crack in the fear. Can we not go back there tomorrow? She asked. Not unless you want to, I said. And if we do, it won't be to plead. It'll be to reclaim. Madison nodded once. Okay. I sat in the chair across from her, not too close, not too far, close enough to be present, far enough to let her breathe. My phone buzzed with an email from Monique. A list of next steps. Hearings, documents, safety planning. The unglamorous work of rebuilding. I didn't read it aloud. I just replied, understood. Madison stood up, walked to the closet, and hung her hoodie on the hanger like she was marking territory in a place that was safe. Then she turned to me, hesitated, and wrapped her arms around my shoulders. It was quick, tight, like she was afraid she'd lose the chance. I held her steady and said the only thing that mattered. You don't have to be brave anymore. I'm here. I used to think the worst threats were the ones you could see coming. The kind with uniforms, weapons, and a clear enemy. But this wasn't that. This was family drama, dressed up as helping paperwork used like a weapon, and a sister who thought she could rewrite the truth if she said it loud enough. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt trapped by someone who claims they're doing it for your own good, hear me, control isn't love and fear isn't loyalty. What saved us wasn't a fist fight or a miracle. It was evidence, the legal system, and a decision to stop playing nice with abuse. If you're into family revenge stories with real military mindset and real consequences, subscribe to the channel. We keep it honest, we keep it smart, and we don't let wolves hide behind the word family. 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 Behind the word family.